Hi all, we didn't get a chance to finish up our modes of selection today, so I just wanted to very quickly throw together a little video so that you're ready for the exam on Monday, because this is definitely going to be something that there will be a couple questions about. We already went through the first three modes of selection: directional, stabilizing, and disruptive. And I'll just take a minute to talk about balancing selection, which is this last type of selection or mode of selection where no single phenotype is favored, and that really leads to this increase or stabilization of the diversity within the population. So let's look at some examples of this. There's basically two situations in which we see balancing selection. Those are called heterozygote advantage and negative frequency dependent selection. So let's look first at heterozygote advantage. So we see within heterozygote advantage that the heterozygous individual is favored. So you remember that a heterozygous individual has two different alleles. So in this example, we're looking at big A and little a. So two different alleles are favored within a population. And we know, because you've done your Punnett squares, that if an individual that's heterozygous mates with another individual that's heterozygous, then there are three genotypes that are possible for their offspring: homozygous dominant, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive. In this situation, the homozygous individuals, whether they're homozygous dominant or homozygous recessive, are not selected for. Either they don't survive to reproduce, or they're unsuccessful, or for whatever reason, it's the heterozygotes who do the best. So they're more likely to survive and more likely to reproduce. They reproduce with other heterozygotes, and the same pattern persists where the homozygous individuals never do well. And so that really leads to a population in which both alleles, the big A and the little a, or the dominant and the recessive, are maintained within this population. So we have this genetic diversity, though we rarely see non-heterozygous individuals. The effect of this is that genotype and phenotype diversity is maintained within the population. Now, the second type of balancing selection that we can see is negative frequency dependent selection. So this sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It says that the fitness of a genotype decreases when its frequency becomes higher. That's what we mean by negative frequency dependent. So if we look at an example quickly, right, we can sort of have this trait where we have dark versus light, and we can have a frequency of individuals. And here we have in the population that more individuals are darker, but for whatever reason they get selected against because they are more common, right? So it is this frequency dependent negative selection that there's no advantage to be in the sort of popular color in this example, but there is some advantage to being white because they're rare. We can also have the opposite occur because, of course, over time, if more individuals are doing well that are lighter, then that's going to increase, right? There's going to be more and more and more individuals who are that lighter color, and fewer and fewer and fewer who are the darker color. And so now we see the opposite effect, where because it is the rare instance of individuals that is being selected for, we see that there's positive selection for individuals that are darker, and there's negative selection against individuals that are lighter. And so we will get a reversal of this. And that over time, right, creates this pattern, right, where there's more or less white, or in this case lighter individuals, and that really leads to sort of stabilizing or balancing of the genotypes within this population over time. We see some examples of this. Sort of a classic example of this are the fish, like the feeder fish who feed on bigger fish. It's always advantageous to be in the group of rarer mouth feeder. So the right mouth versus left mouth will dictate which side of the fish that you can be on when you're feeding or attaching to it. And so it's always more advantageous to be in the minority, and then that causes you to increase your reproductive success, and then you become the majority, and then it's more beneficial to be sort of the other mouthed or sided fish. And so you can see their population goes up and down over time, which maintains the same genotypic and phenotypic diversity in life. This also leads to maintenance of our sex ratio, right, where our males and females are typically found in 50-50 ratios across different species, because it's advantageous to be the rarer sex. And so that leads to this balancing effect. And so we tend to see that pattern of selection. All right, so that's all I wanted to review. Like I said, it was just going to be a quick review of this last type of selection that we didn't get to during class, but make sure that you're reviewing all 4 modes of selection in relation to the different types of selection that we already went over. So remember, for sort of every situation that we look at, you can identify what type of selection is acting. Is it natural, sexual, or artificial? And then what's the mode? Is it directional, stabilizing, disruptive, or balancing? If you have any questions, please don't be afraid to ask. Good luck.